Well, good morning. Welcome to Church at the Corner. If you're watching online this morning, we want to thank you for that. I know it's a nasty morning here in Bowling Green, at least, this part of town. Rain coming down pretty hard, but thanks so much for giving us a few minutes of your time. I'm Tim Brown. I'm the lead pastor here. We're going to jump right in just a second, but I want to make you aware of some links that are at the top of this page that you're watching it on, or maybe even down in the comment box, some links that you can click on to a Connect card where we can know if you're watching for the first time, and we've got a gift for you. We'd love to be able to get that to you. Also, our generosity link that you can click on, and then also a link where you can click and go and give us a prayer request where we could pray over those. We'd be honored to do that. So you should see those somewhere on the top of the page or even in the comment box, and you can click on those. There'll be other links throughout our time together if you're watching online that you can utilize as well. So again, we are very appreciative of you being here this morning. We have a very powerful message that we're trying to get out right now as we try to be a church that's focusing on people. The church is people, and we want to let the world know right now that message in a world that we're living in right now that needs to know the hope of Jesus and the power of Jesus. And we believe one of the ways you can help us do that this morning is by sharing. If you're watching from a screen, boy, the rain is really coming down. If you're watching, you can share this on your news feed right now. It's the easiest way to help us get the message of Jesus out in front of people right now, is you'll hit the share button. You can also host a watch party where people can watch with you. So right now, if you would be so inclined to help us share and get the message of Jesus out to as many people as possible, you can do that very easily by just clicking on the share button. We're going to be together for about an hour. They're going to do a couple songs here in just a minute, and then I'm going to come back up and give a message that I think is very close to a lot of our hearts. Then they're going to come back up and do a couple songs as well, and then we'll wrap up. So again, thanks so much for being with us this morning. We know the Lord will honor your time. We're very appreciative of that. So I'm going to turn it over to these guys.
let faith arise. Let all agree, there's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise. Let all agree, there's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise. Let all agree, there's no power like His power. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes no way. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes no way. There's nothing that our God can't do. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. So let faith arise. Let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. You work in signs and wonders. Your voice is light and thunder. Your glory burns in every star. You flood the earth with beauty. I see you all around me. Oh God, how wonderful you are. So I fall down with a million pains, lift up my hands and say you're holy, holy. Join in with the ancient song, heaven and earth respond. You're holy, holy. Your heart for every nation reaches through generation. You called each prodigal your child. You bridge the greatest distance to grace us with your presence and draw the sinner to your side. And I can't help but fall down with a million saints, lift up my hands and say you're holy, holy. Join in with the ancient song, heaven and earth respond. You're holy, holy.
so thankful for you and for who you are. God, we thank you just for always reminding us that we're never alone, that you're always right there with us. God, thank you for letting us gather, and I ask that you would just open our ears to hear the message today. God, we thank you for all that you are. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
All right, it's still storming out there. When you have a roof open that goes all the way to the ceiling up there, you can hear everything. So we're getting quite the sound effects this morning here. That's good. All right. Well, this morning, we are continuing our focus on what we're calling People, Not a Building. And Emily did just a fantastic job last week with what she had to share. The Lord laid upon her heart there in regards to the fatherless. And I appreciate her jumping in and doing that for me last week. I needed to go down and take care of some things with my parents. And so it's nice to have somebody as gifted and as Emily is, to feel very confident that folks are hearing what they need to hear. So today I'm going to address an issue that I feel very strongly that is close to most of our hearts. And I'm going to try to talk really loud whenever the rain is beating up there so you can hear me. But I don't think there's any doubt that all of us want to make a difference. Gotcha. Okay. I don't think there's any doubt that all of us want to make a difference in the lives of other people, especially those that are in need, those that have needs. And I think we really want to do more than just help the people that we call the poor. I'm not somebody necessarily that has really ever liked that term, but that's the term that we use. What I really want to focus on this morning is, first off, talking loud enough where you can hear me over the rain. And then secondly, I really feel like we're outside in it right now. So we really want to empower the poor and help them take steps out of whatever poverty they're in the midst of, and help them move into the life that God has designed for them. So the title of today's message is just that. We're calling this Empowering the Poor. And I know there are a lot of you that might be listening today, or maybe listening tomorrow or whatever, watching this video, you've come across it, and you might even be struggling right now yourself with a lot of needs, and you might find yourself considered in this category. But to kind of get started this morning, I just want to have a little fun, okay? It's okay to have fun at church, and so I want to have a little fun, and then we'll jump into what I really want to talk about. So one of the things I did this week was I went on to Twitter, and I put these words in, "I'm so broke." I know you guys have heard jokes about that before, so first off, I want you to know these aren't mine. I didn't come up with these, so if they sound really corny, don't blame me, okay? But I did come up with a few that I felt I could share publicly. So this first one, you're really probably going to have to be about 40 years of age and older to relate to it, maybe not. But this was the first one I came across, where this person said on Twitter that they were so broke that their baloney has no first name. Okay, there you go. Again, I didn't come up with these, okay? So I'm not a comedian. Most of you all know that, all right? The next one is that I'm so poor, I can't even get a sugar daddy. All I can afford is a Splenda daddy. All right, these are better than I thought they were, apparently. So, and then the next one says, I'm so poor that I rub cologne from magazines on my shirt. And when people say that I smell good and they want to know what it is I'm wearing, I say page number 5. Okay? And then the last one is, I'm so broke, I go to KFC to lick other people's fingers after they eat. So that one's that's broke, but that one's nasty too. So anyway, so we had a little fun. Now we're going to jump in. So the reality is that there are many, many people in our own backyards, down our streets, that we work with or whatever, that are struggling right now, especially in the world we're in today. I mean, through COVID, all the different things that have happened, there's people that are struggling. There's no doubt. And many of you may say, I'm one of those people right now. I'm really in a real deep place right now. And I have some needs, and I don't know what to do. Some of you, when you move out of the context of our own world, our own country, some of you have been to developing nations, and you've encountered some things that you'll probably never forget. You come across a group of people that they're living in a one-room, very unstable shack, and there's 6, 7, 8, 9 people that live there. And this shack they're living in may be the size of some people's big walk-in closets in their homes. And these shacks are made of metal scraps, and they may have a sheet over them for a door. There might be a bucket in the corner, and that's their toilet. They don't have access to water. They might have to travel several miles to a community just to get water to bathe and water to drink. And while we may say there's no food in our refrigerator, they would never say that. They're hoping that a bag of flour and some rice or something might get them through the week, because it's very, very difficult. Whether it's poverty like that or poverty of someone who's unemployed right now, and the hardship that it brings, and they live in your neighborhood or they live down the street from you, somebody in your family. All poverty is real. So I want to talk this morning about not only helping, but how do we empower those who are in need that in a way that honors Christ. What's really interesting to me is that in Matthew chapter 25, Jesus tells us a parable of what it will be like when He returns someday, His second coming, when He comes to regather His people. Essentially here He says that He will separate those that are His from those that aren't His believers. And He'll speak to those that are His, and He refers to them in this parable as the sheep. And this is what He says in verse 35 through 39 of Matthew chapter 25. He says this, "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer Him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" Jesus then answers them in verse 40. He says this, "The king will answer and say to them, 'Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it for one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me.'" I want you to imagine what Jesus just said there for a moment. That whenever you use what you have to empower someone who doesn't have something that they need, you are actually ministering to and blessing Jesus. I mean, can you imagine? Just think about that. That's how special it is for us to use what we have to make a difference in the lives of other people. Perhaps this is why in Proverbs 19, verse 17, we read this, "One who is gracious to a poor man lends to the Lord, and He will repay him for his good deed." See, you're literally serving God by serving people who are in need. And then in 1 John chapter 3, verse 17 and 18, these verses could stun you into silence when you first read them and you listen to the power behind them, where he says this, "But whoever has the world's goods and sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how does the love of God abide in him? Little children, let us not love with word or with tongue, but in deed and in truth." Another version of it says this, "If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and truth." See, it's not just for us to just say, "Oh, I hate that." Somebody needs to do something. That's not what we're talking about. But I believe God calls us, the church, which are people, to be the hope of the world. To take the resources that God has put within our care and our management, the ones that we think are ours for some reason, financially, talent, times, materially, whatever. The enemy has done a phenomenal job of convincing us and deceiving us that those things are ours. They're not. They're God's. Anything that you have that's good in your life, financially, whatever, it came from Him and it is His. It's not yours. You've just been given it for a time period to manage. So why in the world we have dug our fingernails so deep into it and think it's ours and not give it to help other people, not give it to the local church, not give it to other entities that are trying to help people and impact their lives? We think it's ours. But we're to use that for other people to make them whole. And how do we do this? I want to know that. I think you want to know it too. Because I know every single one of you, when you've been exposed to deep needs before, it moves you. If it doesn't, there's something wrong with you. It makes you ache. It should. You should care. You should want to do something. But the problem is many times we don't know what to do or how to do it. And we really don't know how to get it right when we do it. In order to get it right, what I want to do this morning is I want to start helping each of us build a foundation and truly get our minds around what poverty is. That's where it has to start. What is poverty? In fact, there's a really good book. My wife has read it. Many other people have too. I've just pulled excerpts from it. I'm going to quote it here in just a minute. But there's a book out there called When Helping Hurts. And in this book, the author states this, which I thought was extremely interesting. In answering the question, what is poverty? This is what they say. Most Americans define poverty as a lack of something material. If I ask most of you what poverty is, you might say, well, it's when someone doesn't make enough money to survive, or they have inadequate housing, or they don't have access to clean water or such, and they don't have good health care. Your 14-year-old son or daughter might say we can't buy an iPhone. Whatever it is, it's relative to where you are. But most Americans would say poverty is lacking something material. On the other hand, there was a group that did a study and surveyed some 60,000 people from all across the world in low-income countries. And this is how the poor people, again, I don't like that term, but here's how they defined poverty. The truly poor define poverty as a mindset, as a deep sense of shame. It wasn't lacking something material. It wasn't that they couldn't afford a pair of nice jeans. They never said that. It was a mindset. It was this deep sense of shame They felt very ashamed that they couldn't do more, that I can't figure out how to get my way out of what I'm in. They also said that there was this ongoing feeling of worthlessness. They used the word fear over and over. They used the word humiliation. They used the word hopeless again and again. You see, it's a sense of being trapped. It's not like, hey, I just wish I had a car that had a backup camera so I'd be safer, wouldn't run over somebody or hit my car on something. It's not that. It's, hey, I don't know how to get out of this. I don't have access to education that can help me move past where I'm at. I don't have any kind of transportation. I don't have any hope to ever have any transportation. I'm just trying to feed my family this week. It's a mindset more than it's a lack of something material. And what we need to understand is how to help empower those who are struggling. We need to understand that we just don't need to give what someone needs to get them through the day. We need to help change the way they think. We need to really help turn a mindset from a sense of hopelessness to a hope that God has given us and given you and I, that we can help them get out of that situation that they're currently in. And what we need to do is we want to give in a way that helps, not hurts. We often think we know what helps people, but often we get in the way and it hurts. Like a story I read about where a church sent a group of people to this developing nation with hundreds of t-shirts to give to the villagers there to help them. And all the kids lined up for free t-shirts. But on the third day, they realized that there were 3 women in that village that made shirts to sell to other people to make a living. See, sometimes our good intentions can get in the way, and the result may not be so helpful. A lot of times we want to come and we want to help somebody, but without knowing it, by giving them a handout, we're actually insulting them in the process. I'll give you an example that I read about again, and actually I think some of you have probably experienced what I'm getting ready to read. This person wrote years ago that they were part of this really neat small group at their church that always wanted to do stuff to help other people. And one of the things they would always do consistently is they would adopt a family at Christmas, a less fortunate family. A lot of churches do that. A lot of organizations do that. They said they'd find a family that was in need, and they'd go all out and go shopping and bless this family with things that they could never afford. And every year, it would make them feel really good about themselves. They'd say, look at us great, amazing Jesus followers. The guy wrote that one year they went to deliver gifts and they realized that maybe they were hurting more than they were actually helping. And it was painful for this family because when they got there, started walking down the sidewalk with this massive amount of gifts to this little bitty house, they realized that it might actually overwhelm the people that were inside. So they went in. The kids were really excited, he said, but they watched as the dad sat down over in a corner on a sofa. He put his face in his hands, and he just looked totally broken and humiliated. What they didn't recognize in their good intentions was basically they said in front of his wife and kids, you are incapable of providing for your family. So therefore, we're going to do it for you. Totally good intentions, but he wrote, we brought shame onto a man who was doing his best, and we ended up hurting someone that we were really trying to help. See, here's what we got to recognize, guys, and this is key to the whole understanding here, and it's this statement right here. All poverty is a result of brokenness. If you're taking notes, you need to write that down. All poverty is a result of brokenness. We need to understand that the root of poverty comes from brokenness. And guess what? We're all broken. We're all broken people. and that the root of every type of poverty, and poverty isn't necessarily material things or financially, the root of all poverty is brokenness. Relational poverty, financial poverty, we could go on and on. There's all kinds of different poverty, and the root of it is brokenness. Some of you, if you were to go to a developing nation, you'd get there and you'd go, oh my gosh, look, they don't have anything. But then you start looking around, and as you were around them more, you'd realize, but man, I've never seen people love each other and care for each other the way they do. Look at this sense of community. I don't have that in my life. I have that kind of poverty in my life back in my city that I live in. See, there's all types of different poverty. And the root of it is always brokenness. It starts with a broken relationship with God. When Adam and Eve sinned against God in the garden, creation was in a sense broken and tainted by sin. Therefore, some people are without today because of the brokenness of sin. Not just materially. There's a result of brokenness with self. You might have bad self-esteem. You may think you don't feel like you have what it takes to be the kind of husband or father or whatever it is. You're not recognizing that you were born and created in the image of God, and that you have this power and you have access to it within you. And you may think you feel like you don't have what it takes to better yourself, to better your family, and therefore you feel this sense of hopelessness. That's a poverty too, guys, and it's all a result of brokenness. It's broken relationships. If you have a specific need in your life, but you're too ashamed to ask for help, and somebody could help meet that need, but you're too self-absorbed or self-focused, your pride not to ask, or if you're the person looking to be asked, but you're so self-absorbed in yourself that you won't look to even help, that's all because of a broken relationship. But when we actually serve one another, that brokenness is evaporated. That's why it's so life-changing when Jesus rode into Nazareth and he comes to the temple that day and he walks in and he opens up the scroll. They read through scrolls, and he reads out of the book of Isaiah, where the prophet Isaiah had written. And it's recorded in the New Testament in Luke chapter 4 what it said and what Jesus said. He said this, verses 18 and 19. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because He anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set the oppressed free, to set free those who are oppressed, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord. And then it's recorded a few verses later, Jesus says, today those verses are fulfilled in me. I am the fulfillment of all. And what Jesus is saying is, I came to bring good news for the poor, which is all of us. I came to set the prisoner free, which is all of us. And what we need to understand is this, that Christ saves people. Christ heals the brokenhearted. Christ is the only one who can truly set the captive free. The root problem of poverty is brokenness, and Jesus is the one who binds up the brokenhearted. And when we understand that at its root, the poverty is more of a mindset than a lack of something material, that is from the root of brokenness, and Jesus is the answer. That changes how we try to help and empower those that are in need. You see, we are called to this. And we need to understand that as Jesus followers, every single one of us are called to empower the poor. Not just some ministry, not some pastor, not somebody that works with a nonprofit. Each one of us, as Jesus followers, have the responsibility and the opportunity and the privilege to empower the poor. And how do we live this out? What do we do? What do we do when there's a guy on the street and he needs money? What do we do when you encounter someone that's apparently in need of a place to stay? They're homeless. What do you do when you run into somebody in your neighborhood when you're walking and you find out they've lost their job? Or somebody in your church that you're connected to loses their job? What do you do when you recognize there's some global need that for X number of dollars we could help get clean drinking water to somewhere? Or for a few cents a day, we could get mosquito nets or vaccines for certain diseases. What do you do when you're overwhelmed with some need, when somebody needs something? How do we help in a way that doesn't hurt? Well, I'm going to share 3 thoughts with you in our remaining time that I hope will be helpful to you as we seek Jesus to get this right. We can't do this, but He can through us. Number 1 is this: we need to recognize that we are called to serve others, not save others. We are called to serve others, not save others. It's insulting and dangerous to think that we are the answer to somebody's problem. We're not. Jesus is. We're the servants. Jesus is the answer. Jesus is the power. We are just the servants. We are His conduit of His power. We don't save people. We serve people. Jesus saves people. And how does He want us to serve? And this is really important. So I'm going to break that thought down into 2 thoughts. When we ask the question, how do we serve others? We really serve others by essentially doing 2 things: offering relief and working to restore. Relief and restoration. They are different, but both are very important. What is relief? Well, relief, my definition, is immediate temporary help during and after a crisis. It's immediate help. It's temporary lots of times during and after a crisis. A tornado wipes out a neighborhood. A hurricane hits a city. An earthquake demolishes a village. In your own world, it might be someone loses a job. A relative discovers that they have stage 4 cancer. Someone has an accident in a car and is in really bad shape in the hospital. So relief, it's immediate and temporary to help them sustain through a crisis. Then there's restoration. Restoration's a little bit different but important. Restoration is a long-term relationship to rebuild wholeness. A tornado hits, the hurricane hits, the earthquake hits. There's lots of news about it, a lot of attention given to it, and it lasts, the news cycle lasts 5 or 6 days, but then the world moves on, and there's still tons of people that are trying to rebuild their lives. But the church, we, people, we're still there even when the news cycle moves on. That's to help restore. We want to help people rebuild their lives. Maybe it's, look, I'll put you up in a hotel for a while. Your house has been destroyed. I mean, we just had that happen in Nashville back in March. We've had it happen in our community. We want to help rebuild their lives. So what do you do in the meantime when your house needs to be rebuilt? You need restoration. You need a long-term relationship to help you rebuild to wholeness. Essentially, this is what the Good Samaritan did to the Jewish man who was beaten and left for dead. Emily talked about it last week. The Good Samaritan offered relief first and then restoration. He came by the guy who had been beaten so badly that he might die, and he immediately offered relief. Here's some oil for your wounds. Here's some bandages. Let me do what I can to help you survive. Let me give you a temporary fix to the pain you're going through. Then he put him on his donkey, and essentially he wound up taking him to a bed and breakfast, if you want to say it that way. And he said, hey, you know what? I'll pay for this. I got to go take care of some business, but I'm going to come back. Why? Because I want to help you rebuild your life. So I'm going to provide relief and restoration. Now I want you to hear me right here, guys. And I don't want you to go, well, there's the church thing. You're talking about money. We believe that if you're a Jesus follower, we're taught and we are to believe that the first 10% of what God blesses us with, paycheck, whatever, the first 10% of that off the top is to be returned back to God, and that's called a tithe. Now, I'm sorry you don't like that, but that's the truth. Katie Davis, who started, I can't ever pronounce it right, Almazima Ministries or whatever, 18-year-old girl started it. She says this, at some point in her life, she finally had to understand that if she was going to be a Jesus follower, she had to do what Jesus said. And it's taught that we are to give 10% right off the top of everything that God gives us. I don't care whose name is on the top of your paycheck, that's from God. And you're to give 10% of that back to the local church, his instrument to change the world. And that's called a tithe. So the church can do and help people and empower the poor and help people with relief and restoration. We're commanded to do that. It's an act of worship, actually, is what Scripture says. People talk all the time, Jesus is my deal, man. He's my life. I worship Him. Well, let's get your checkbook out then and see. You can sing all the songs you want, but the true form of worship is you doing what He says. That is how the local church is able to be the local church. That allows us to help people in need. God doesn't need your money. We're not asking for your money so we can do stuff around here and pay a bunch of people a bunch of money. We need it so we can be the church. It's an act of worship. Then it's also said that God expects us to give an offering above that tithe. Melinda and I, we do our tithe, but then we give other amounts above that tithe. We've got a Compassion International kid. I'm going to tell you, that's one of the greatest ministries out there to help other people in other parts of the world. We got a little boy named Jose. I don't know how long we've been giving to him. I just know every time we get a picture of him, he sure looks a lot older than the last one. We've been doing it for quite some time. When he was a little boy, I think he's a teenager now. I'm not sure. But we've been sending every month money to help them. And I'm going to tell you, Compassion International, your money goes to help them. They do a tremendous job. And then we also use a certain percentage of our revenues of our business every month, right off the top. We give it back to local nonprofits or ministries. That's an offering above our tithe. Now, I'm not trying to make us sound out like we're some great person, okay? It's all I can relate to. I'm just trying to give you an example that anybody can be that. But that's what God wants. We're His church. We're people. We're the church. Be the church. You've heard me say that over and over and over the last few weeks. Be the church. A lot of you want to help other people, but you got so much going on in your life you can't. So this is a way to do it. You give to your local church so it can help people. Then you give to other organizations that help people. It's simple. But we think it's ours. Enough of that. See, what I want you to do is I want you to give to those who are trained to help people. Because if you're going to give, you want to make sure what you're doing makes a difference. And that you get the best return on your dollar, if you want to say that. And when you give, and I know all of you want to help, this allows you to be proactive in your giving. Think ahead of time. Don't just wait for something to come to you. Think through it, pray through it, ask God to help show you where you can help other people. Strategize how you can use what you have and invest it in others and in places that will really make a difference. Because we're called to serve others, not save others. Jesus saves, we serve. Number 2, we're called to relate with people, not rescue people. And this is really important to understand. We're called to relate with them, build relationships with them, to love them, to care for them. And don't miss this. And this may be the most important thing for many of you. Those who are struggling, guys, are not projects to help. They are people for you to love. We'll say that again. They are not struggling projects of yours. They are people for you to love. There will be a time when I need some help and support from somebody. I've had to have that in the past with some of the health issues I went through. There will be a tragedy in your life, a hurt, something that you'll need. I'm just going to tell you personally, I don't want to be your project. I don't want to be, here's a little something to make me feel good about myself. I'm going to help poor little Tim. Those who are hurting are not projects. They are people. And they are people we have been called to love. And when we understand that, that changes everything. Because we'll invest in them. We'll build relationships with them. We'll give freely of our time and our resources. Let me give you another example that I read about of how we can mess this up sometimes. I was reading in this book. This guy talks about years ago, there was a part of their community that had this totally run down apartment complex in it. And people there it was really bad. I mean, the conditions were awful. So they thought as a church, one of the ways they could help and change these people's world was they took tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of people. They all wore the same color T-shirts. They took all kinds of pictures and selfies and did all that stuff. And they got there and they redid this playground for all these kids. They played Christian music and, they just made the apartments and the playground look the way they wanted it to look. They landscaped the whole place. They painted, and this whole week they were there. They did kind of an extreme home makeover. And you may say, well, what's the mistake in all of that? Well, the mistake is, he says, they didn't get to know the people who were there. We didn't talk to any of them. And it was a massive mistake. We never sat down with them and said, hey, what could we do to help you? Make your life better. What do you need? He said, we never asked that. And if we would have, here's some things we might have heard. We might have heard a 25-year-old single guy say, if somebody could help me learn to read, I might be able to get a better job, and then I could provide for my family. We might have heard some guy say, well, if you could just help me get off meth, get me around some people that could help me do that, it would make a massive difference. We might have heard a young mom say, well, if I could just get some kind of transportation so I could get a little better job that pays more than minimum wage, I might be able to give a little better life to my kids. Now, I'm not saying, he says here that I'm not saying they might not have told us hey, if you could just give us a really cool playground and some flowers, that would help change our lives. He said somebody might have said that. And if they did, what we should have done is said, how can we help you achieve that? Let's do it together. See, what we would have done is we would have included them, he said. They would have brought what they had to the table. They would have had more pride in it. We would have helped them accomplish what they wanted to accomplish instead of going back 2 years later, he said, and finding that this playground was back to what it used to be. Because we came in as heroes, we thought, and did something we thought that was helpful that really wasn't. He said we needed to get to know those people and sit down with them and help them and ask questions like, what could we do to help you accomplish your dreams? What do you need? And how could we partner with you in helping provide those needs and make you better? You see, guys, we're never going to do for someone else what they can do for themselves. We're going to help them accomplish what they want to do that gives them dignity, pride, and a sense of forward movement. That's what we've been called to do. Those who are struggling are not projects that we help. They are people that we love. And the way you love somebody is you get to know them. You spend time with them. You invest some time in them. We're called to serve others, not save others. We're called to relate with people, not rescue people. And then number 3, we're called to reach out, never reach down. We're called to reach out, never reach down. We're reaching out because we care. We're never reaching down because we think we're better than someone else. We got to get past that. So many of us think that way. We look down on people that we're trying to help when we're supposed to just reach out. When we're reaching out, we're essentially saying is, you know what, I'm poor too. There's something in my life, I have poverty too. I'm struggling. I struggle every now and then. I'm not a hero. I don't have all the answers. I'm just reaching out simply because I love you and because I care about you as a person. I love what Brené Brown, who's a researcher and an author, says about this particular subject. She says this: we've divided the world into those who need help and those who offer help. The truth is we are both. I love that. We're both. We offer help and we need help because we are poor too. Guys, that's how you love your neighbor. We never swoop in and try to be heroes reaching down. We're always fellow brothers and sisters in Christ reaching out. We reach out because we care and because we love. At our church here, Church at the Corner, we have some community partners, 6 of them actually, that we pre-selected a few years ago, where we don't go and try to start something on our own. We don't have to be the founders of something. It doesn't have to be our idea. We don't need to start it. We just go and find someone who's doing something really well. And what we've decided is we want to come alongside those people and help them do what they're already doing very well, even better. So that's why we need you to participate in that. That's why we need you to give of your resources so we can help those that are helping other people do it well. That's what we've been called to do. Your time, your talents, your financial resources, your material possessions. See, the next time you have a desire personally to do something in your community, maybe you just find somebody that you think is doing that. They found somebody that they're helping. Find out who they are and just jump on board and help. And then you take whatever time, resources, your heart, your talent, and you reach out to someone who's in need. At the same time, you recognize that you're in need too. Because the truth is, we are both. See, when you give to others, oftentimes you get back a whole lot more than you gave. You've been there. That's how we neighbor. What did Jesus call us to do? To love our neighbor as ourselves. To love others as Christ loved us. We're supposed to love God with all of our heart, all our mind, soul, strength. And then the next thing he said to do after that was we're to love our neighbor as ourselves. But you know what? The enemy has us so focused on ourselves. Men especially, this statement I think really hits right here, is that most men are out here trying to be successful at things that don't matter or won't ever really matter, to a point that they get to a point in their life and they look back and they're like, I've not helped anybody move forward in their life except myself. That's not how most of us want it to end. I don't think you want people to come to your funeral and say, man, he was the most self-focused, driven, got everything he ever wanted for himself. You don't want that, do you? What you want them to say was, man, he was generous. Man, he helped empower the poor. He gave so much of himself to other people. A life well lived. Guys, we've got poor neighbors right next door to us and poor neighbors across the sea. I can't get most of you to send a postcard to invite somebody to even watch the live stream. But we got people all around us in need. And it starts with Jesus. Be the church. People. The church is people, not a building. Be the church. That's how we love one another. And that's how we empower one another. It's pretty simple. Let me pray. Father God, we come to you this morning just asking that you would empower us as your church to get this right in our communities and all around the world. I'm going to assume that all of you that are listening this morning or watching want to help. I know you do. I know it's in your heart because you were made in God's image. And when you see a need, you want to meet it. The problem is we often meet the needs in a way that truly doesn't help. So what I want to do is I want to ask you right now, how many of you want to be proactive and prayerful? I want you to answer that question in your mind right now and say, I want to be proactive. I want to be helpful. What that means is that you will actually pray and ask God to help you be that way. To spend some time thinking about it and thinking through how you could help other people. Somebody in your neighborhood, somebody at work, somebody just lost their job, somebody that you encountered on the street the other day, on the sidewalk, somebody in your family. All of those who say, you know what, I do want to help. I don't want to just react to whatever comes my way, but I want this to be a calling on my life, and it's important to me, and I want to be prayerfully proactive and ask God where and how and what I could do to make a difference, so that I'll be prepared to offer relief to others, and I will love enough to offer restoration. And I'll stick around when everybody else goes home because I want to help make a difference in this world. If you say yes, I want to be one of those people who makes this a part of my calling on my life, and I'm going to seek God. I'm going to talk to God about it. I'm going to talk to other people, and I'm going to be intentionally proactive and seek God on how I can make a difference. Would you ask God right now to start showing you where you can help other people? Would you ask God to help you let go of some of the stuff you think is yours? And would you tell God right now, I'm in. God, I'm in. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm in. Help me. Help me to be one of those people. Help me to be the church. Just me. Not worried about others. Just help me. Help me be intentional with my resources and my time to make a kingdom difference. Help me to be the church, Father, because I am the church. The church is people, not a building. And I'm so thankful to be part of that church and be one of those people. Father, help me to love my neighbor as you have loved me. In my Father's name, I ask this. Amen.
You were the Word at the beginning, one with God, the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you are Christ. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. And death could not hold